Okay, so welcome back. We are now August, which means it's post Badwater 135. Woo! It is complete. I have the belt buckle to show for it,
Come on.
and quite a few quite a few memories and emotions to try and process. Anyway, how are you doing since you've been back, Fletch?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I feel like I've been processing some emotions as well, especially in the lead up to about 3 a.m. when then you've been waking up and we've been handing the baton over.
Yeah. No, I've definitely found myself with maybe jet lag, maybe just an overactive mind, but find myself waking up in the night wondering about all the things I could have done differently, or what's next, or what does all this mean, and what's going on, and who am I?
And what's the meaning of life? Well, I think one of those thoughts would definitely be how you're going to change the podcast name to My Journey to My Journey Back to My From.
I think it's, it touches on one point, which is I think so. So obviously we've finished the race. The race is done. It will kind of. I don't think we've got time to go through it all blow by blow. But suffice to say, we'll touch on a few bits of it and kind of how the race unfolded. But it's a monster. It's fair enough. It's fair to say it is an absolute beast of a race. It's hard to articulate unless someone's been into that environment to just quite how enormous, and kind of every single dimension is kind of supercharged, right? From the temperature to the distance to the scale of it to, every single thing you go through is just like dialed up. And I think that's my lasting kind of memory. I think so. My sort of lasting memory of it is all just like how vast it all was, like everything, like we're going to those sections you were running with me as we went kind of across the Panamint Valley. And as you start out on that section, it's like, oh, it's only across there. It's just like, it's a few K. It's miles, like every section is just vast. And I think that's the kind of slightly overwhelming or overarching. That's my slightly overarching, the kind of takeaway from the whole thing is just the enormity of everything about it, whether that's the first climb. What's the distance of the first climb? 17 miles. Like I was looking up yesterday, like the longest climb in the whole of the UK, the longest road climb is something like 5 miles.
Was that one of yours?
It was one of my late night
AM searches.
But the longest climb in the UK is something like 5 miles, and it's like a few percent average. Well, that one is 17 miles long, and it was, I don't know what.
At least 6-7%, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you were crewing. The crew did an exceptional job, which we can go into probably as a separate thing, just in the detail of how that all unfolded. But what was your kind of last thing? What did you think? How did things go for you?
Yeah, I mean, things from our side went really well. The team just gelled really, really well. You did a good job of putting some very mixed personalities together and making it work, which is brilliant because it's exactly how it should have done. Everyone came together around the mission. But like you said, it was just the vastness of everything. And I don't know whether it was just the length of the race in regards to hours, like 30 odd hours. But at some points during the night, especially, you kind of get this impression that it's never going to end.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you had this.
Felt that.
You sure you had that? It's almost like the Twilight Zone. It's like, this is now where we live. Like, we live in the desert now. Let's just get the tent out and build a house and start making. It's just insane to kind of get that. And obviously, as I've put my thoughts in order, but as we were kind of going through the race, stopping every 2 miles or 2 kilometers and getting the bottles ready and so on, it became very rhythmic. And in that itself becomes quite trapping. You kind of like get into that next routine, you get into the next stop, and you feel like it's never going to stop. But like you said, that bit where we ran together, I was like, I think Nick had just done the climb and the descent with you. And he's like, cool, I'm out. I was like, oh, okay, I'll jump in then. was like, oh, it's just only over there. I can see Panamint Springs from here. That's fine. So about 1.5 kilometers. 5 kilometers later, still kind of tackling this flat with you, and it just feels like nothing was getting closer. I think there was one moment that kind of you had a wobble at the second night when we were kind of getting towards Keeler, and it's still. Pardon my French. It's still fucking in the distance. It's still over there. It's not getting any closer. But I remember sort of having a chat. We looked back and looking at all the lights coming down from Darwin, like snaking down the mountain. There's still like 50, 60 people behind us here, and that's 4 hours away. They're taking us 4 hours to get from the top of that mountain to where we are now, and they're still over there. And then suddenly it was kind of like, moly, this is like so spread out, and everyone's like hundreds of kilometers away from each other, really. So like you said, vast, the expanse of it all, the sort of emotional roller coaster that we went through, and also just trying to be so locked in for so long. That was quite
Yeah. Well, that's why Nick with his lightsabers brought a kind of a levity to the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, so I think for the lots of people followed along. We had the kind of updates through WhatsApp and various things. Yeah, the general race went. It's a kind of flat 42 miles, so 42 miles to Stovepipe Wells, which went pretty fast. I think we went through there sort of something like 6 hours ahead of the cutoff, like pretty moving reasonably well. The fly in the ointment, and it would definitely be something that raised its head pretty aggressively later, was that within K, I was feeling like hot spots in my feet. I was feeling like my toes in my shoes. I honestly cannot remember the last time I had a blister. Like it's like years. I think last year at Nova Colia, I think I probably got like one blister under my little toe, and that was with all those hills and all those descents. And we're 15K in, and I'm feeling my feet, which was a bit of a concern, and turned out to be more of a concern and become quite an issue. That was the kind of starting point. Then we had all these big climbs, and then roughly, I'd say 80 miles in, something like that. Is that roughly where we were? And really the kind of pace had dropped now, and it was basically walking. I couldn't run. My feet had been taped up so much, and every time I ran, they were like shredding my toes. And it was then that I just realized, 50 miles to go or something, 40 something miles to go. Oh my God, we've got it's not just the distance, it's suddenly the time. Time went from, I can't think now, but maybe 5 or 6 hours left to suddenly like 12 plus. And that was a pretty low point, to understatement. and that's to the point you were talking about. It's the same period in race where you could see, it was nighttime, you could see red lights of every car into the distance. And in your mind, you were like, well, they're just up there. But actually, they were the lights all the way to the finish line. It was like 40 miles ahead. And it's like, and because it's nighttime and it's just a dot of a light, you can't judge any distance. And so you're staring at this view for the entire night. And it's you're moving forward the whole time, and yet you're not making any progress. Or you're not making any progress. But it was something Harvey Lewis said. I saw him at some photo thing before the race, and he said, don't forget to look back, because you won't believe how far you've come. And I don't normally do that in races. It's like you kind of very much focus on moving forward. And as you said, it was not until you look back and look at the view behind that you realize that you were actually getting closer to these little red dots that seem to never get any closer. So, yeah. Anyway, I think that the kind of summary of the race was, it's brutal. It is, as I commented at some stage when I was sort of trying to talk myself, it's like, it's not the second toughest race, is it? Like, so what do you expect? But it's amazing, right? It was, I think, as a kind of arena to go in and competing, and the people you're competing with, and the kind of athletes and the crews and the event and the race, it's the most incredible place to be, right? It's just that vast expanse, but also there's this unity from all the people doing it. So it's quite an exceptional thing. And we can talk about all the kind of events before and after and the kind of way everyone comes together, but it definitely has that kind of genuine, like, sort of family, Badwater family. I mean, Chris Cosman, the race director, talks about it like, I just think there were so many elements in that week surrounding it that really kind of reinforced that feeling, and probably summed up most by the post-race party, I thought, where, the first thing that happens is he gets all the crews to stand up. Because there is no way any of the athletes would have crossed the finish line, if the crews weren't there. Like, it's just. And so to put them front and center as the very first thing that's is a real kind of recognition of the way the whole thing comes together. Yeah, I just thought it was quite an exceptional experience on every level through the days and all the week that we're out.
No, for sure. I mean, just thinking about it, it's probably the closest thing I'll ever come to become like being in the film Lord of the Rings and traveling across the country. It's just like the pilgrimage from one end to the other one is just epic, with the scenery changes and we haven't even got into like the story of the bees yet, but I think then going and having that moment at the end where everyone comes together and kind of debriefs and decompresses is actually quite unique as well. I see a lot of races doing that kind of celebration of life. Really, it wasn't about the wins, it wasn't really about anything else. It's like everyone who took part gets to celebrate. Especially starting off with the people who've finished closer to the cutoff, getting them up. I mean, slightly brutal to make them go up first because they took the longest and they're now standing up in front of everyone for the longest. But it was just nice to also people who didn't finish the race to also get a chance. I mean, not many of them turned up, but 3 people who didn't finish the race were still there, and everyone got a standing ovation. Really, that was a quite unique experience side of things too. When it came to sort of officially finally getting to bed, it was almost like a bit like of a almost like a buzzing kind of feeling. We've gone through something, which was quite we only have really had that from severe sleep deprivation in other situations, but you don't get that many opportunities like that in life to feel like that. Like, you've massively achieved something, and 2, your body's kind of vibrating with the need to sleep, eat, and celebrate all at the same time. So good fun.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty special time. I think the whole thing, it kind of needs even more sort of time to kind of digest and kind of take in. But I think one of the things as I have been thinking about it recently through since the race was, and kind of writing about it, which I'm doing at the moment, is it's not a race against other people, right? In theory, yes, there's a leaderboard at the end of it. But ultras tend to have this as a bit of a notion that you're kind of racing, it's less about the way you finish in the ranking and more about your performance or whatever. But I still remember standing on the start line right by the start, and I wasn't nervous at all. Like, it was a very bizarre sort of feeling. Like, I was excited, and everybody there, so everyone groups around the Badwater Basin sign, and there's like 30 odd people in my wave, and everyone's kind of really positive and really kind of energized, and it's definitely got this feeling like each person is going to have their own race here, and they're going to be spending a lot of time on their own, and the nature of the race means that you are spending a lot of time on your own. Even, I'm not discounting the kind of pacer's presence, but in terms of like the kind of the race thing, you spend a lot of time on your own. It's a race against yourself. It's like it's you versus you and all that sort of stuff. And that really plays out. And I think that's probably why there's quite a few people that go back. Because I don't think you can ever run that race and not think there's something else you could have done. You know what I mean? It's not something where you can like, I nailed that. It's like, yeah, we did all these things right, but there's no way you can go 135 miles and think I got it all right. Even I suspect, Max Jolo from breaking the record, I'm sure if he reflects on it, there'll be bits where he's like, oh yeah, this section, this thing. And then that's exciting. I mean, that to me is exciting. Maybe it's a little bit daunting. It's probably now we should admit how long after finishing the race, how long was it? What was my comment? And how long did it take?
Well, there is a bit of backstory is needed before we reveal that, because on the way up Mount Whitney, I think we had a couple of different opportunities to talk about the fact that you were saying, I think I'm never coming back here. Like this is tough. This is like really hard. This bit now, I think I'm done. This is brilliant. I've scratched the itch of ultra. And then you're like, also, I don't think I'm ever going to get permission to do this again. 25 minutes after you finish the race, you're like, cool, that's it. I'm doing that again. 25 minutes, your whole world turned around. You're like, nope, this is it, unfinished business. I think there was also, I think you whispered a comment to Chris being like, yeah, unfinished business here. And that was probably about 3 minutes after the race had finished.
Yeah, I know. It's worrying, isn't it? I was at 4:00 this morning. I did check next year's date. I was checking. There is a categorically no that I will not be getting permission to run it next year. Although I'd like to. I can see, I was always unsure when I did the race whether, and you hear about people who've done it many times, but we spoke to many of them. I was always unsure, is this like a one and done thing? Or is there that kind of desire to go back to repeat the race? And it's a race where I can see why, right? I can see why people go back and I can see why they do it, because it's just the most magnificent place to run. It's extreme, it's hideous, and it's awful and it's brutal and all those other things as well. But, those views and those places you're in and the kind of experience you have, it's going to be pretty hard to.
Yeah, I mean, to your point earlier on, there's no real place in the UK, or I would even say in most of Europe and the world, where you can have that much expansive land and not see a single human. Like I was trying to tell the virtual long run on Sunday, being like, so I live out in Surrey. It's about 45 miles for me to hike to London. And imagine doing that and not going through a single town, petrol station, not seeing a single person, and it just being about almost like prairie land with desert involved. Yeah, and that's kind of what it's kind of what it was. Is the entire of the UK with about 4 towns in it.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it's like, I live in obviously just north of Bristol and drive, go up to London. It's further than that with nothing. And remember these, Furnace Creek is like a garage and a shop. Stovepipe Wells is sort of similar again. Panamint Springs is the same. We're talking, these are like service stations. There's a bit of a hotel at some of them.
They're not towns.
No, they're not towns by any stretch of imagination. And, we must have talked about Keeler. So Keeler is, where is it? It's probably 105 miles in or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talked about Keeler through the night. We're waiting. We're going to get to Keeler. We're going to get to Keeler. I think it was like 3 houses. It's like a kind of.
I think it was like 3 mobile homes, not even houses.
Yeah. And you're praying for this thing to arrive for hours on end, and then it comes and goes, and off you go. Anyway, it was one hell of an experience. I would say I'd recommend it to everyone, but I'm not sure that's really. That's really the right advice.
That's not a responsible podcaster saying it.
Yeah. I recommend it to anyone who is seriously considering it, but I would also say put in some proper training. Yeah, no, it was
on that side of things. There were some very, very, very experienced ultra runners in that race, and even their race came undone. So I think we should mention that like Sophie Powell was in the race as well, and bless her, at some, I think it's around 90 to 100 miles in, somewhere in between there, that she got rushed to hospital, and She's got a huge amount of races under her belt through probably like a hyponatremia into lung edema and hypoxia. Her health started to decline quite a lot. And that story wasn't unique to her. There was a lot of people on that race that had sudden stomach issues, and it's a long way to go to have a stomach issue. It's not like a marathon where you have a bit of an upset tummy and you can kind of grind your way through it and you might just not hit your PB. Like 30 miles in, you still got 100 miles to go. That's, I think, the biggest, what we kind of were talking about before is things that go wrong early on only get worse and increase in their magnitude later on. So yeah, I think you have to be super experienced on not only your body and what signals and signs crop up, but also just generally making sure that you're competent with doing the races and knowing when's not good and when's not good to carry on as well. Amy Paulson, who's the other runner who works for Fit? I can't remember her name. Amazingly pink hair.
Yeah, Annabelle.
No. We'll fact check that one. She passed out at some point during the race, and her partner or crew chief decided to. You can check in now.
Ashley
Paulson. There we go. He was like umming and ahhing whether to pull her out or not, and because she faints quite a lot during races, and they've got that experience together, they decided actually she's going to be fine, to give her a break, and then she'll get back into it again. She came like fourth or fifth or something.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's a race of knowing what's normal and what's not normal, and the whole thing's not normal.
But we had it a bit with my hands. So my hands swelled up, and my sort of feet, mainly my hands, or more visibly my hands. And we had that. We had that kind of: is this too much? Basically, is it too much salt? Not enough salt? Too much liquid? Or is it just the fact that they've been by my sides for 30 hours and they're a meter long? But you can see how we had a very detailed tracking system, or the crew did. So we had a very detailed tracking system, so we knew where we were. Or I say we, I didn't have a clue, but you guys knew where we were. So it was then a case of we're able to make a decision and then make a change and just say, yeah, your hands are swollen, but it's not because there's a problem. It's because there's just the nature of how you've been stabbed. But I think I was going to mention, I think this is not in reference to other runners, but in a way, but perhaps as your point to Ashley highlights. I think what I did, and what is not normal for me, but it's something I kind of did and seemed to be comfortable with, which I wouldn't have thought I would have been, was basically just handing over responsibility, like total surrender to the crew and their decision making, because it is simply the race is really long, and B, I've got reasonable experience, and I kind of know my body, and I kind of I know what I feel or don't feel and stuff. But when it's that extreme and the heat's that high, and therefore the volume of sweat is so much higher, and all these other things are so big, to try and make good decisions as the runner in that environment, I think is actually risky. And I would hazard a guess that the runners that are able to kind of surrender over to their crew, and their crew have the experience, are the ones that actually come through better. Because I think if you try and in my hands would be a good example. Like I thought maybe I've had too much salt, was my logic, right? It wasn't right, but it was my logic, and I had enough experience to kind of put together an argument for it, but it wasn't right. But you could easily see how you could take that thought process down the road. Before you know it, you've caused yourself big problems. So I think that whole giving up the kind of responsibility to the crew and be able to rely on them is quite a big step, but pretty critical. Otherwise, I think you really are in danger, of just not making the right decision, and it's a pretty extreme place to be not making right decisions in.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, as we sort of said, like making those wrong decisions early on in the race too, where you're just off by a little bit, and it keeps continuing to be off by a little bit, just compounds and compounds and compounds and compounds. So we over-egged quite a bit on fueling and sodium, just to make sure that we didn't undo the race too early on. And we decided at some quite obviously before the race started, but quite early on in the hydration discussion, it's just to salt all water. There will be almost no plain water on the course because we've tested you. You've been wearing the Flow Biotech to sort of get a rough idea on your salt loss, and it was reasonably high. So why would we want to play with that number and be like, okay, we know we're losing at least this much. Let's just keep replacing that by that much. I've just done a little sum all, and we were like 74 grams of sodium, not even salt, so 74 grams of sodium by the end of that race that you had taken on, plus 3.2 kilograms of Morton, carbohydrate-based Morton. Yeah. You know, we I think we dialed in a lot on that side of things, and I think that's definitely what helped keep things on the straight and narrow, and also what justified our decision to be like, I don't think this hand swelling is clinical. I don't think it's something that we actually have to worry about too much right now. I think we sort of had this moment of saying that because you've been dangling your arms down, you're not running as much anymore. Your arms are twice as long as they would be if you were running. All the fluids go into your hands and they're just swelling up. And once we kind of had that discussion, everyone kind of it made sense to everybody. Suddenly we're like, yeah, okay, back to it again. Ignore them, do some hand clenches if you can. You're like, I can't lift my arms. It's actually quite tiring. In some of the service stations, I held your arms above your head for you and you're clenching your hands. So we managed that as you go along.
Yeah, it didn't help.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still had puffy hands. I mean, they were properly puffy. I could not see my knuckles. I mean, it was like comedy. It was like something out of some film. But it was days later, right? It was 24 hours, 36 hours until they decided to come down.
Yeah. Like you've been to a baseball match and you're wearing those foam hands.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, I mean, we could talk all day about the race, and probably we should come up with some specific questions and try and answer them more rather than rambling around the whole thing in one jumbled synopsis. But suffice to say, it's an absolute beast of race, and it is the most incredible environment, surrounded by the most incredible people, and in its whole creates the most incredible kind of experience. And I think it will probably take quite a while to really kind of sink in and kind of comprehend what's next. So yeah, which brings us on to
segues into. Well, I think we were kind of discussing that before, and I think this is where it's quite interesting to note that, especially after some of these big life goal races, there is a natural slump in motivation, excitement for the next thing. Even like mental health can deteriorate a little bit as well. All these things have that massive euphoria to then suddenly, boom, back to normality again and normal life and so on. We've seen a lot of Olympic athletes where they've kind of hit the Olympics and then suddenly after that they have this real like low phase afterwards. Segues very slightly. We had one of our runners, Ed, who did the London Marathon after like 3 years of deferring it, ended up taking his own life after a race. And just because he'd reached this huge highest of highs and then still not quite sure what happened, but at some point may have reached the lowest of lows and then decided that was the exit route. So it's not to be underestimated, the power of having reached what you think is the epitome. And so now it's kind of like getting back into social connections and getting back into like running for the joy of it rather than because of a big aim or something you're aiming towards, but also recalibrating expectations and being like, okay, well, that was monumental, but I can't do that every week or every 3 months. No, what is my goal next, or what's my North Star? I think you've already mentioned a couple of times now. It means that once you say it 3 times, it's facts and going to happen. Racing Nova Coley fast is probably the next sort of thing to aim at, because one, it's a nice, you've done the race before, you've got the course really well now, you've got a good history of decreasing your time on the course by 5 hours at a time. But also there's a different aspect to the goal, being like, okay, it's not about going further anymore. It's not about doing more. It's about actually just build up the speed and start looking at a more performance outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's all I think we said even before the race. I was like, I'm nervous about the state of, my kind of state of being after the race, right? I've been aiming for this race for a long time. I've been aiming very specifically for a long time as well. So to have now completed it, it just changes your outlook. You've suddenly lost that goal. You've completed that goal, but also you've lost it, like, as in I've not achieved it, but it's now behind you. It's past tense. And so coming up with a way of, kind of navigating through that is not insignificant. And I think it's also, it's worth pointing out for, the mindset it takes to tackle those goals is very, there's a lot of focus and there's a lot of kind of execution and all that sort of stuff. And that frames everything, right? That frames everything about my day and my week and my month. And so then when you take that out, that's actually much more destabilizing than perhaps someone who spends their time, sort of just going along with the flow. You're going from a very kind of very, very single-minded, dedicated pursuit of a goal to then nothing. That's a big gap out. It doesn't mean it's a problem, but it's definitely something to be aware of. And like you say, it's like now it's time to kind of refocus. You always have this after big races, even just any race. I always find like it does take a bit of time. If I go out for a run, I haven't been out for a run, but if I was to go out for a run, I'd easily like just get 3K and think I can't be bothered. Like you just have nothing. You just have no, like, physically I can do it, but I don't have any motivation to do it. So it's about kind of refining that. And but let's see, maybe that Nova Coli thing is.
Well, I think
I've already checked. I've already checked with Mario. I've already found out the dates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think on that note, I think some people come back to running way too soon after a big race, and they kind of, like typical situation of this. Harvey's already back into running like 20-mile runs to getting ready for his next backyard ultra. He is an anomaly and very much an outlier in these situations, but like the brain and the body are very good at telling us when it's a good time to come back in again. And it's not the conscious brain, it's the unconscious. Like you said, like it's just like grinding through a 2 to 3 kilometer run when you've been doing like 30 Ks routinely is a good sign you're not ready to come back again. We talk about the central nervous system fatigue because you couldn't tense your calf up after the race. That's a very long recovery process for that brain to get things back going again. Even after a marathon, 2 weeks really is I would say minimum for a lot of people to get back to being able to just go out and enjoy doing something again. And the body's kind of fully recovered and you can't be back to it. But after this, it's like probably a month and maybe sometimes for other people more. I think for you, you're looking at like 2 to 3 weeks of kind of pottering around and doing little bits in here and there. Maybe getting back in the gym and doing some more strength-based stuff if your feet will allow it. But then eventually, maybe like 3 weeks, we can plan our first tempo session.
I'm in a mood. I think it's also important to be kind of really excited to restart. And I think I'm already thinking about what's next, but I'm not. So I'm sort of building that anticipation rather than actually going out and doing anything. Like I went on my bike for not last night before to follow along with someone who's doing John O'Groats Land's End, Thai. And that was fun to kind of be out and doing something, but it was by no means particularly difficult and all the rest of it. But it was kind of nice to move, but without thinking it's anything related to kind of training.
Mm.
But I think building up some sort of healthy anticipation of so when you go back, you want to go back rather than feeling like you're having to push yourself back or push yourself back into it is the kind of way to go.
Definitely. I mean, this is not really, it's not even an age conversation, because I think we're seeing now more young people getting injured from overtraining situations because they think they're invincible and they're just not. So the body just takes time. And yeah, and there's no rush. You've got plenty.
Well, we will eagerly anticipate the plan, the Novacoli plan, which sounds like it's basically that's now 5 times I think it's been mentioned. No, but I've always said I think that's a great race. Like, it's always been, I've done it twice. It's always been a fun race, but it's a great race. It suits me. It's kind of it's hard, but it's on the road, so I kind of that sort of suits me. So it feels like a good one to go after. And it's not it's May next year, so plenty of time to do it, and probably don't need to shove any other events in just for the sake of it, unless something particularly exciting crops up.
Yeah, I think also do not to be underestimated is the time difference as well, and family life and all those other things that kind of revolve around the race and getting out there. And you can get out there and back again within a couple, like 3 or 4 days, whereas getting out to America and the amount of acclimatization to this, the time, and like getting your brain around dinners, breakfast, and breakfast is dinner, all that nonsense just takes a toll.
For sure. So I think, and the other thing that's come out of this is it's locked in your running, hasn't it? Because as you admitted, you think I might have forgotten, but on that climb up to Mount Whitney, I seem to remember having a conversation about how your run training was now more of a thing than it used to be. There's another.
I thought you were delirious.
No, but I didn't. I remembered.
Yeah, no, for sure it is. This is. I feel on a day-to-day basis, as being a full-time coach, it's very difficult to get my brain around my own training, because I'm constantly looking at other people's data, other people's goals, and aiming towards them, and so on, so on. So for me, in exercise, actually, it's probably like a therapy session, but me and exercise have never really got on in the way that I'm like obsessed with it. I can actually leave training for a reasonable amount of time, and I get quite locked into other things like work and building Tamagotchis and other things like that.
Don't say.
Yeah. Which I haven't done for a while, Laura, please.
Yeah.
So that kind of area of my life has always been a job and a necessity. So I've kind of always treated it as more like a health outcome rather than I love doing it. But saying that, when I was competing in Thai boxing, it was a joy to train. It was about getting from one week to the next. And I was training like 3 hours a day at that stage. And I've also since stopped Thai boxing, struggled to get my head out of the all or nothing principle. Lockdown came along, a long journey with pivoting a business around and so on, all the nonsense around having 2 kids, etc. in that time. This journey, and you basically asking me to crew for you, which is an honor, you're like, probably should get back to some running, probably should do some heat acclimation, probably should do all this stuff, because I don't want to be the one taken to hospital when you're out there running 135 miles and I can't do 5K in the heat. So yeah, it's been a very, very good reawakening of the training side of me, where I've really enjoyed getting back into it again. I've kind of found my rhythm to get back into it again. The biggest part of it, and I'll happily speak to her about this, is I feel a massive amount of guilt for Laura, because she loves running and really needs it, and she just doesn't have that opportunity because she's got the baby pretty much attached to her all the time. So that's still to be worked out, because she is currently in Spain, and we'll work it out when she gets back, or when I get out there, and how we can keep her exercising and training too. So it's a fair game.
Yeah. There's a lot of hours in a day, so it's all possible. It's just, other things have to squeeze, don't they? So,
exactly.
But we'll help broker that negotiation so that you're both running at the next event. That'll be the way to do it.
There you go.
Good stuff. Well, I think the main thing, the kind of lasting thing for me is to sort of publicly thank the crew. So I think for the benefit of it, so Brad was crew chief, obviously Fletch was kind of coach and crew, Rich and Nick were both crew as well, and then outside the kind of the vehicle crew, which was a special place to exist in, our Honda Odyssey. The Honda Odyssey, that could tell a story.
Good. I'm not sure it wants to.
No. So it was a fantastic experience. It was made fantastic by not just the race and all the rest of it, but by sharing it with you guys and everything you put into it, which was really quite. And obviously Rach as well, who helped through the whole kind of campaign, and is a big reason why. I was on the start line, because she's forever. As experiences go, I think that the kind of running that race alongside that crew is up there, and it's been a pretty special pretty special time. Thank you to everyone.
Well, it's been an honour, and on that note, thank you for inviting me out there and being part of that. I don't get many opportunities to see athletes across the line. People were actually quite surprised by that. I wouldn't have been able to do it out there if it wasn't for Laura, my wife. Also, publicly thanking her, and she does such an incredible job to allow me to do these sort of things. Yeah, those at home, keep it going.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. All right. Well, we'll maybe dive into specifics of the race. I'm sure people have got like very detailed questions about, I don't know, carbohydrates and heart rates and all that sort of stuff. But we'll pick that up next time.
I've got to do my data analysis for that.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a rather large spreadsheet to sift.
Well, it's actually the first time that we've actually, in the history of me crewing 2-3 races of this magnitude, have actually been able to keep everything documented because we've had support on it. So
yeah.
But we've got rows and rows and rows of intake data that we can go through.
Very good. All right. Well, I'm just going to be a lazy sod until next time, but I'll.
Good, and so you should.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Nice one, Fletch. I will speak to you soon.
All right. Peace out.
Cheers.